Imagine you are wandering through a harsh, prehistoric landscape. The sun is beating down without mercy, and you are dangerously dehydrated. Up ahead, you spot it. A stagnant, muddy puddle of swamp water. It looks absolutely disgusting, smelling like rotten eggs, but primitive thirst takes over. You cup your hands, ready to chug down that murky green soup. Wait! Stop right there. Drinking untreated water in the Stone Age was essentially playing Russian roulette with your intestines. One bad gulp could mean dysentery, cholera, or a nasty parasite party in your stomach, leading to a very unpleasant death. Now, modern humans solve this easily. We just use high-tech filters, add purification tablets, or simply boil the water on a metal stove. But remember, our ancestors during the Paleolithic era didn't have metal. The Bronze and Iron Ages were still tens of thousands of years away. They only had tools made of bone, stone, animal hides, and wood. And herein lies the ultimate prehistoric paradox. You see, they had fire. But if you put a wooden bowl full of water directly over a blazing campfire, well, yeah, physics doesn't care if you're thirsty. The container burns up long before the water ever gets hot enough to boil. So, our ancient ancestors faced a massive dilemma. How do you boil water if your only pots are highly flammable? They solved it with pure, brilliant, primitive engineering. If you can't put the pot on the fire, you put the fire inside the pot. Welcome to the life-saving magic of rock boiling. Instead of heating the container, cavemen would take solid, non-porous river rocks and bury them deep in the hot coals for hours. Then, using wooden tongs, they'd drop those scorching hot rocks directly into their wooden bowl of dirty water. Sizzle. Instant boiling water. So, problem solved, right? Just grab literally any rock off the ground, heat it up, and drop it in. Wrong. Doing that is a fantastic way to get yourself killed. If you pick a porous rock from a wet riverbed, like sandstone or limestone, it is completely full of microscopic holes holding deeply trapped moisture. When you carelessly place that wet rock into a blazing hot fire, the trapped water rapidly turns into steam. Steam expands to 1,600 times its original volume. With nowhere to escape, the pressure builds inside the solid stone. Until, boom! You have just created a prehistoric fragmentation grenade. Shrapnel flies everywhere, taking out your eye, destroying your dinner, and putting out your fire. To survive, our ancestors had to become amateur geologists. They needed dense, absolutely dry, igneous rocks like granite or basalt. They would tap the stones together. A dull thud meant microscopic cracks. A sharp, high-pitched clink meant it was safe to heat. Even with the right stone, they had to heat them gradually near the edge of the fire first, avoiding sudden thermal shock before pushing them into the hottest coals. Once glowing red, the rock goes into the water. But remember, physics works both ways. The water instantly cools the rock down. One rock won't purify an entire bowl. To kill the nasty bacteria, the water needs to reach a rolling boil for at least a full minute. This required a frantic assembly line, a constant, exhausting cycle of heating, dropping, removing cooled rocks, and dropping hot ones back in. It was hot, exhausting, and highly dangerous work. But that boiling process killed the parasites and ultimately kept humanity alive. But what if you were migrating across a vast, treeless plain? There are no thick logs to hollow out, no large gourds, no bamboo, nothing to build a bowl with. How do you hold the water to boil it? You use the grossest yet most brilliant waterproof container nature ever invented. A freshly hunted animal's stomach. The rumen of large herbivores is incredibly tough and highly elastic. It is essentially a prehistoric, watertight leather bag. Once scraped clean, cavemen would suspend this fleshy sack from a simple wooden tripod and fill it to the brim with dirty swamp water. But obviously, you cannot put an animal organ directly over a roaring fire. It would instantly melt and spill everything. So, rock boiling comes to the rescue again. You heat your stones in a separate fire until they are glowing red. Now, dropping a scorching hot rock into a thin, fleshy meat sack sounds like a terrible idea, doesn't it? Yeah, doesn't it? Wouldn't it burn right through the bottom? Surprisingly, no. Physics is on our side. Because water is an incredible heat sink, it absorbs the thermal energy so quickly that the flesh never reaches its melting point. As long as the rock is completely submerged, the organic wall remains totally safe. You just keep swapping stones. Soon, the water inside this morbid meat cauldron reaches a vigorous, bacteria-killing rolling boil. Now, to be fair, drinking hot water out of an unwashed animal stomach might taste a bit like raw tripe and swamp mud, but it won't kill you. And in the brutally unforgiving Stone Age, survival didn't have to taste good. It just had to work. This bizarre, disgusting method is exactly how our ancestors conquered every environment on Earth. So, rock boiling kills the invisible killers. But take a close look at what you are actually about to drink. It is still a chunky, textured soup of thick mud, dead insects, animal waste, and probably a few boiled leeches. Drinking a heavy cup of solid mud will just make you vomit, which ends up dehydrating you even faster. To solve this texture problem, our ancestors engineered the world's very first multi-stage natural water filtration system. They would peel a large piece of flexible bark from a tree, fold it into a cone, and stuff the bottom with moss. This dense layer of moss acts as a primary physical sieve, catching all the large debris like leaves and insects. Next, they packed in a thick layer of fine sand. This tight matrix traps the smaller suspended mud particles from passing through. But the absolute most genius prehistoric hack lies in the final layer. They grabbed crushed black charcoal from old, cold campfires. Charcoal is incredibly porous and acts just like modern activated carbon, creating a highly advanced chemical filter right in the wilderness. It chemically binds to dangerous toxins, absorbs heavy metals, and completely removes that foul, rotten egg swamp smell from the liquid. They secured this layered cone over a clean wooden bowl and slowly poured the disgusting swamp sludge into the top. As gravity pulls the sludge down through the sand and charcoal, what drips out the bottom is crystal clear, fresh-looking water. It looks absolutely perfect and smells incredibly clean. But wait just a minute. Is this filtered water safe to drink yet? Absolutely not. Physical filtration only removes dirt and chemicals. It does not remove microscopic, disease-causing bacteria or deadly viruses. You must filter the water first to remove the mud, and then rock boil it to sanitize it. The ultimate prehistoric survival combo. But filtering and boiling only work if you actually have a puddle of water to begin with. What if the land is completely bone dry? When the watering holes evaporate and the rivers turn to dust, prehistoric humans had to rely on nature's biological GPS. They didn't wander aimlessly. They looked for insects, specifically the honeybee. Bees need water to cool their hives. When a bee is fully loaded with water, it flies in an absolute, perfectly straight line back home. So if you have the stamina to sprint after a bug through the wilderness, it will lead you directly to hidden moisture. But nature likes to play tricks. Sometimes the water is trapped deep inside a narrow rock crevice where your hands cannot reach. The solution? The prehistoric straw. Cavemen would use hollow bird bones or long dried reeds to suck the water out like a survival milkshake. But what if you are lost in a dense jungle? Finding a puddle might be impossible, but the trees themselves are giant water bottles. Certain thick, woody water vines hold gallons of pure, biologically filtered water. You just need to hack them open. Cut as high as you can reach, then sever the bottom. Clean, safe water will immediately pour out into your mouth. However, there is one absolute rule in jungle survival. If the liquid coming out is milky and white, do not drink it. Milky sap in the wild is almost universally a sign of deadly poison. Drinking that will paralyze your organs faster than a saber-toothed tiger can eat you. Throw it away instantly. And if there are no bugs, no cliffs, and no trees, you find the outside bend of a dried-up riverbed and you start digging. Even when the surface is completely baked, underground water tables still seep into the lowest points. Dig deep enough, and the earth will provide. So, you mastered water purification and hydration. Congratulations, you survived the week. But in the prehistoric world, a new deadly enemy is always around the corner. Winter is coming. When your tribe finally takes down a massive mammoth, you suddenly have thousands of pounds of fresh meat. But without a modern refrigerator, that meat will rot in days, becoming a toxic feast for maggots and bacteria. Eating rotten meat in the Stone Age was a guaranteed death sentence. So, how did early humans preserve their food for months without electricity or chemical preservatives? The first genius hack was prehistoric jerky. They used sharp flint tools to slice the meat into incredibly thin strips. Then, they draped these strips over wooden racks built directly above a smoldering, smoky fire. The heat evaporated the moisture that bacteria need to survive, while the thick smoke acted as a powerful natural insect repellent. The result was meat tough as shoe leather, but it was incredibly nutritious and wouldn't rot for over a year. But what if you didn't have time to smoke everything? During the Ice Age, humans utilized nature's ultimate walk-in freezer. They would bury massive cuts of meat deep inside the permafrost, sealing it away from scavengers and sunlight. The sub-zero temperatures halted bacterial growth completely, keeping the meat fresh as long as the ground stayed frozen. But the absolute most bizarre prehistoric hack? Throwing perfectly good food straight into a stinking, muddy swamp. Specifically, peat bogs. These environments are highly acidic and completely lack oxygen. Burying meat in a bog essentially pickled it. So, you have clean water and preserved meat. You're exhausted. It's time to sleep. But in the Stone Age, sleeping meant becoming a late-night snack. The prehistoric world was crawling with apex predators. Dire wolves, cave lions, and saber-toothed cats equipped with built-in steak knives. The first instinct was verticality, sleep in a tree. Some early humans literally tied themselves to thick branches using leather straps so they wouldn't fall. But trees are uncomfortable, the wind is freezing, and well, gravity is unforgiving. Also, some leopards can climb. What about a cave? Sounds great. Except the prime real estate was usually already occupied by angry 3-ton cave bears. So, early humans engineered the ultimate prehistoric bedroom, the fortified campfire ring. Fire is the original force field. Almost all predators instinctively fear the heat and light, creating a natural safe zone of illumination. But a fire can die down while you sleep. To prevent surprise attacks, they built physical alarm systems. First, the crunchy floor. Any stealthy predator trying to sneak in would inevitably step on a dry branch. Snap. A perfect acoustic trigger. Second, the pain barrier. They dragged massive piles of dense, thorny brambles to create a circular wall around the fire. It was prehistoric barbed wire. A wolf sticking its nose into that would get a painful reminder to hunt somewhere else. But the final defense was biological. Early humans were extremely light sleepers, highly attuned to the sounds of nature. Scientists believe we evolved a sentinel survival trait. Even while sleeping, parts of our brain remained partially alert, scanning for danger. And most importantly, humans are social animals. We never slept alone. While one half of the tribe rested, the other half stood guard. With fire, thorns, alarms, and teamwork, they created a tiny island of safety in a brutal, monster-filled world. Good night, caveman. The sun rises on another day in the Stone Age. You didn't die of thirst, you didn't starve, and you weren't eaten by a bear. When we look back at our primitive ancestors, it is incredibly easy to just think of them as simple, grunting, uneducated brutes. But the reality is entirely different. The people who invented rock boiling and engineered multi-stage water filtration systems, and those who figured out the complex, life-saving chemistry of preserving meat inside acidic, oxygen-free bogs. They had the exact same brain capacity and intelligence as we do today. They were the ultimate prehistoric scientists. They didn't have shiny laboratories, textbooks, or even basic metal tools. Their laboratory was the brutal, unforgiving wilderness. And through countless trials, deadly errors, and extreme desperation, they managed to conquer every single continent on this planet. Today, modern humans complain if our tap water is slightly warm or if the Wi-Fi drops for 5 minutes. But we forget that every single comfort we enjoy today is built directly on the foundation of their bizarre survival hacks. So, the very next time you effortlessly pour a clean, perfectly chilled glass of water right from your shiny refrigerator, take a quick moment to thank your great-great-great-great-grandfather and the relentless human spirit of survival. The caveman who looked at a filthy, disease-ridden swamp, picked up a glowing, burning hot river rock, and decided to completely conquer nature using nothing but dirt, fire, and pure, unadulterated genius. You survived this crazy episode of Primal Hacks. But could you survive the freezing ice age? We will find out. Make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and stay primitive, my friends. See you in the next adventure.